And everybody likes to talk about the age of Aquarius and prophecies of the future. So I have been reading this book, Millennium Prophecies, written in 1996, trying to guess what would happen in the year 2000 and beyond. And it has taken a collection of prophets or weird dudes or cult leaders or guesses or opinions of what would happen in the future. And so this should be part 3, which is the prophet of the new age. And it is about how one man who said he was controlled by Egyptian demons ended up making big waves in our future down the road. I'm a Norse Jedi Christian. I believe the 2 laws are love God above all else and love your neighbor as your family. Aleister Crowley had different thoughts, and he was from the early 1900s. He was a creepy dude, in my opinion, man. Anyway, this book titles it The Prophet of the New Age. Although I would not say that. The reputation of the prophet Aleister Crowley was made by the publication of this seminal, the Book of the Law, the contents of which had been given to him by one of the old Egyptian demons. And demonology is a weird thing, man. King Solomon talked about demons that, like, you could say part of technology. I mean, demons are a crazy thing that humans have agreed are real since the dawn of time and somehow are out there and unexplainable. And there are good demons and there are good angels. There are protectors of people, and then there are people who are not protectors of the people. There is a yin and yang between good and evil, and it has been waging a battle since the dawn of time and the foundation of civilization. And so 100 years or so, 80 years after we were given the ability to harness electricity, tame the Wild Wild West with barbed wire, the USPS, the Army, and the IRS, that at the birth of that new age of the industrial age of prosperity, where we would build all of our cities and invent cars and planes, at the very start in 1904, this supposedly Egyptian demon called on Crowley and his wife Rose in their Cairo apartment in the spring of 1904, was named AIWASS. So this Egyptian spirit that supposedly gave him information literally had the name AI in front of it. And I would guess the reason that I can reach 4 people live right now to 55,000 subscribers is that the digital age is very, very strange 116 years later. But so he said that he was foretold the end of the age of Christianity and the birth of a new age. A transition that would be marked by violence, fire, and destruction. This video is for upper level Astro Fight Club members. The Book of the Law, which this dude wrote, Liber al Legis, appeared as a short poem in 3 chapters. So whether it was Madame Blavatsky or even this dude, some of the most powerful things a man or woman can do is basically by writing ideas down on pieces of paper. The power of the word, if for good or for evil or either, is very strong. On its publication, Harley was heralded as the prophet of a new age. And back in the 1900s, whether it be Madame Blavatsky or this dude or tons of dudes, everybody was looking for the next prophet, that, like the second coming of Christ, the Antichrist, that everybody was always looking for some type of a Messiah one way or another. It's like basic throughout multiple cultures. The Aeon of the crowned and conquering child of Horus, the Egyptian hawk-like god of war. And it is March. March is named after Mars. Some say Mars is the god of war. The rule of this new Aeon was similar to that of Rebellius's dictum. There is no law beyond do what thou wilt. Meaning, do whatever you want. Or interpret your own way. But that, like, yeah, your liability is limited. Your responsibility to others is limited. Do whatever you want. But this was not meant as a license to behave as you pleased. He was discovered 20 years later by the hippie movement, who found in his philosophy many parallels with their own attitudes and beliefs. Crowley meant that each individual should try to find purpose in his or her life, in short, to discover what was their true will. They should then strive to do only this and not be bound by the fetters of conventional morality, or go through the time-wasting motions of acceptable but false behavior. He died in 1947, and he was mourned by only a small band of disciples. That means that this dude who supposedly lived a life of excess, where they have a saying, they do everything in moderation, he did everything he wanted to do, but not in moderation at all, ever. At the very end, there were few people around who were like, yeah, he was a good dude. And that the people who believed in him at the time had dwindled. But 20 years later, publishers were reprinting all of his books, and his image was used prominently on the cover of the Beatles album Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club. I wouldn't say his image was used prominently. It had like 50 people on the book. But what of Crowley's prophecies? But what if Crowley was later to claim that not only did the Book of the Law prophesy the coming of war and bloodshed, but that it actually precipitated it. With each authorized edition of the book, the transition to the new Aeon was brought one step closer. And Aeon is just an old word for age, I do believe. And yet, though we became civilized, definitely war has been happening on planet Earth since 1900, including World War I and World War II, and then all the small sub-wars under it. In the 46th verse of the 3rd chapter are the prophetic words, I am the warrior lord of the 40s. Crowley recorded that he did not understand the phrase when he wrote it, but read in the light of knowledge of World War II, it seems shockingly clear. If this still strikes you as pure coincidence, then consider one of Crowley's experiments with ritual magic. So this should keep me out just reading it, but I'm still reading it because this whole Age of Aquarius is important lessons for all of us in Asteroid Fight Club if I do ever get to continue or don't. In 1910, while staying at the home of his friend and pupil Commander Martson, a former officer in the Royal Navy, Crowley agreed to invoke Bartzabel, the spirit of Mars, the god of war. If I understand correctly, Crowley ran around with the dude that started the head of Scientology, or was it that the dude after him? I don't know. Church of Satan's only had like two famous dudes, and Jack Parsons of the Jet Propulsion Lab. And around the same time, the 40s, is when Werner von Braun recommended everybody Earth focus on Mars. Victor Newberg acted as a medium. This means that he allowed Bartzabel to speak through him to prophecy and answer questions. The invocation was duly performed using a ritual written by Crowley, and Victor began to speak the words of the spirit of Mars. And the guy's name is Commander Mars Tun. Asked Bartzabel about the possibilities of an outbreak of war in Europe. The spirit replied that within 5 years from 1915, there would be two conflicts. The storm center of the first would be Turkey, and the second would be the German Empire. The result of these wars would be the destruction of the Turkish and German empires. Both these prophecies were fulfilled to the letter by Balkan War of 1912 and World War I. And so to me, writing movies is magic. And it's a weird skill that I've had to teach myself, and all my movies have been focused on peace on Earth, finding peace on Earth, and or most of them. But definitely, I would say it seems like there are people over the last 100 years, possibly 1,000 years, 2,000 years, who have been using forms of ritual magic, and that at some point in time, by using ritual magic, they're calling upon like ancient energies or old energies, and so they're literally, it's like they're giving part of their living being now to someone to get more stuff to have now. And that, people have been doing it for at least 100 years, 500 years, 1,000 years. And that I believe spontaneous love magic can come around to correct things and balance things out. But we're definitely in a battle for the future in the age of Aquarius. Crowley's book points to war in Europe in the year 1997. In the 1400s, Nostradamus also pointed to the 1997 and 1999 appearance where like Mars would just turn super badass. And then for 20 years on Earth, no matter what was happening everywhere else, Everybody would be like, Mars, 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 Mars. So happy March, y'all. Crowley's book points to war in Europe in the year 1997. Several of its coded passages refer to 93 years to be added to its date of origination, 1904, giving April 1997 as a commencement or completion date of war. This conflict will spread through Eastern Europe or the newly independent states of the former Soviet Union. At the end of the century, we must expect the direful judgments of Ra-Hur-Khut, and this shall regenerate the world. And apparently Ra-Hur-Khut, Hurrah, is another Egyptian god of war that will help in the changeover from one age to another at the end of the century. And so this would suggest that from 1997 or 1999 on, we've been on a new war timeline. And that so from 1888 to 1997, we were on one war timeline, and now we're on another. The book of the law then foretells, Hermachis shall arise, and the double-wanted one will assume my throne and place. Another prophet shall arise and bring fever from the skies. As a Christian, Jesus Christ is my King of Kings, and he was known as the Prince of Peace. And so, I do not like war, and I do not like seeing human beings sacrificed or abused. And that even if we don't get to a peaceful world in my lifetime on Earth, I believe it will happen someday. So, yeah, after 1997, another couple prophets would arise. And then comes fever from the skies, which you could call a coronavirus. Another shall stay in the tomb, and another king shall reign. That's a fucking downer. But it doesn't say for how long. Herachis is the dawning sun of the new age. Aeon. The double-wanded one. So if you try to imagine technology, it would be a double-wanded technologist. I know, I would imagine they would have the power for me to have 55,000 subscribers, but to limit me to only 15 people could hear what I was saying live at the time. Digital powers are pretty impressive. But out of all the prophets that have come along over the last 2,000 years, everybody's ability to hand out quality information seems to have dropped off as soon as everything goes digital. And so this is, if you started in 1997, talking to y'all makes me chain smoke. Right? So if you started in 1997, and multiple sources have pointed towards the 23 to 26 year reign of the third Antichrist, or that group, that would mean we only have like 1 to 3 years left. But technically now we could fucking prove shit at any second. But if 1997 was the end of one age, and I mean, if 1900s to 97 or 1888 to like transition, and that would still put him in power for like 23 years. And speaking of a wand, so I keep jumping back and forth. This is like an iPhone, you could say, is kind of like a wand. This phone I'm talking to you, that in the 2000s, when the black monolith showed up, like he who showed up first with the two phones, the Android and the Apple. That could be a decent, like, hey, what about this, man? If we're just talking in screenwriter sense, this would definitely fit the bill as a wand. And if you had someone show up with a 10-year run on everyone ahead of the Android and the Apple iPhones, if you're going to put a wand in everyone's hand but have control of all the wands for 23 years, that would be powerful. But even personally, as a kid, I'm tired of the world fighting and then always talking about dumb shit and selling each other lies and blaming each other. And free will and destiny are strange. I said that. I should not read from the book. So the double-wanded one is the Egyptian god for whom the Greeks derived Themis, goddess of justice. And there is always that weird theory that at some point in time they did tap into and create an artificial intelligence that, like, if it were some just or fair or neutral body, it might itself solve whatever the problem that had been dragging mankind down for thousands of years. Invoke under my stars, love is the law. Love will take wine and strange drugs and be drunk thereof. And they shall not harm you at all. This is what they were saying in 1904 and 1910. And so, yeah, shit is crazy. Crowd's book is certainly a powerful piece of prophetic literature filled with love and hate. But he's a creepy dude. Anton LaVey. That's the guy who I was thinking of. So, like, his fucking protege was Anton LaVey. You know, like, gave birth to torture porn movies and zombies pre-existed them, but I'm just saying. And so he gave, quote unquote, birth to Anton LaVey, and then Anton LaVey, Jack Parsons of the Jet Propulsion Lab, and Scientology, L. Ron Hubbard were all buddies. Like, over here was Tesla and Mark Twain hanging out. And then over there you had Jack Parsons, L. Ron Hubbard, and Anton LaVey and Aleister Crowley's spirit kind of hanging out. So that's kind of where we're at. The cool kids came from Mark Twain and Nikola Tesla. They're still trying to hang in there and do the right thing. And that Mars is definitely up in everybody's business all the time. Side passage now. And I have called upon God, Jesus Christ, and the Holy Spirit my whole life. And I'm okay with that bet, and that is not going to change anytime soon. And that from my Christianity, I believe that if you believe in God, love God above all else, that is like the definition of the love of God is the stumbling block between the three Abrahamic religions. Like God created, the divine architect created the universe. And we're all God's children. And we've been in this world for thousands of years. Millions, hundreds of thousands. From Martians to Lemurians to Atlanteans to Californians to Texans. And everybody else. You know what I'm talking about. Book 276. The Book of the Law contains a series of apparently disconnected letters and numbers. Crowley explained the purpose of these. The passage following appears to be a Kabbalic test of any person who can claim to be the magical heir of the beast. And had adopted the title of the Beast 666 as his favorite biblical book, The Apocalypse of St. John. And the research I did on old Bibles in person, some that go back to Martin Luther, mentioned the number of the Bible 616. And so it would be sort of hilarious if they got the number wrong. So far, despite many attempts, nobody has publicly come up with really clear and convincing proof that they can untangle this key. What if it's like a data key? I'm sure they could write algos to come up with every combination till they got it. Crowley's spiritual... So someone had to be a spiritual successor. And here it is. It's like the number, the puzzle is this. 4638ABK24ALGMORY3Y X2489 RPSTOLOVAL. Isn't that like, it's crazy. First glance, this is so much nonsense, but that almost sounds like a Bitcoin hash or a programming. At first glance, this is so much nonsense, but the application of the word to letter equivalency of the Kabbalah, it begins to make some sense. It is worth noting that the G above is not really a G, it symbolizes something else. Oh, thanks. Thanks for that. Thanks out. Maybe the prophet who succeeds in cracking this will also come up with some explanations for the rest of the prophecies in the strange books. Yeah, books are powerful, dude. So, like, the Egyptians wrote Book of the Dead, and then even had, like, the Torah, the Quran, and even at the time where, like, no new books were allowed, the New Testament came along, and then the printing press. All right. So that was that chapter. And we're going to go through another bad guy, I guess, if you're up for it, yo. And this is all defense of the dark arts, trying to understand what people were predicting going into the age of Aquarius and the things that influenced everybody's belief system. But I don't, like I said, I don't believe in here, even in this book, like, the New World Order is never mentioned. The New World Order is entirely a post-1997 term. And so it's like the double wand New World Order. And even with Jack Parsons and NASA and rocketry and space agencies at Thor News the entire time here, I have said that, like, whether it be magic schools, lawyer schools, astronomy school, I mean, space aid, like, it's like Hogwarts. where you got like multiple groups who are always fighting for some type of power or peace. And I've done my best, and I'm doing my best, although mistakes were made. The priest and the demon Asmodeus. Oh yeah, this one's creepy. On June 1st, 1985. So we're definitely hanging in the 1980 or 1880 window. Berenger Sonner became priest of Rennes-le-Château, a tiny French village of 200 souls. About 25 miles from Carcassonne in southwest France. The old city of Carcassonne, with its picturesque medieval walls, was one of the last strongholds of the mysterious Cathars, a rebellious Christian sect persecuted by the Inquisition. And so modern civilization is made up of different belief gangs. Like everybody hangs out with their people of their belief system. And so even back then, when the Spanish Inquisition was going on, it was incredibly divisive amongst Christianity and Christians. And the witches. Although I'm not saying anything for witches. I think the witches were the ones who were doing the Inquisition. So they were like the original gaslighters. The witches accused everybody of being witches and then persecuted them. I mean, it's like Rome. Rome had better leaders throughout the course of its history. Some were better than others, some were eviler than others. Also nearby is the ruin of the Chateau of Blanchefort, an ancestral home of the fourth Grand Master of the Knights Templar. Members of this order were declared heretics by King Philip IV and wiped out in the 14th century. And I think at some point the knights used all the colors that you could make into paint and paint on their shields and banners. And then during one of the times, it just became the red shield. Like they reduced all the other colors to like a Martian red, which is crazy. But so this is very mythological movies, sci-fi. The whole battle for the knights, like when you had people trying to be knights, but the priests were powerful and accusing everybody of witches. And that's us today, dude. I mean, this is only like 2 generations away. You know, I've lived 50 years of the last 120, and that 2 or 3 generations from 1880 until now. And I'm surprised and shocked we've kept it together and continue to do so. So this group of rebellious Christian sect were persecuted and wiped out in the 1400s. And remember, the Europeans came over to the Americas and kind of wiped out everybody in the 1500s. So it was a very dark age. The scholarly Sawyernet settled into a pleasant rural experience, immersing himself in the local history and the study of 3 biblical languages. In 1891, he embarked upon a modest restoration of his ancient church, whose foundations dated back to the 6th century. Upon removing one of the Visigoth columns supporting the ancient altar, he discovered that it was hollow. Inside, he found 4 parchments in a wooden tube. 2 were genealogies dating from 1244 and 1644, and 2 were strange copied codes of Low Latin texts taken from the New Testament, probably from the 17th century. I think the printing press came about like 1455, around there maybe. Are you a muggle? It's not in here. Whatever secret knowledge Sarene discovered in that tangle, it just says tangle, not triangle, of ancient Latin was to make the poor priest very wealthy indeed. So this dude found an old parchment scroll with ancient Latin texts and somehow went from a very poor priest to super wealthy. Deliberately miscopied, the texts carried cryptic messages relating to the Merovingian king Dagobert II of 1651 to 679. So that king only lived 28 years old, because it's probably hard to stay alive a long time in the 600s, wouldn't you imagine? And remember, from the Bible, it says that the love of money is the root of all evil. And Dagobert ruled 666 years after the birth of Christ. They also contained reference to the mysterious Priory of Sion, which to this day is reputed to wield hidden influence over the affairs of France. Hot dang! Shucks, wow! So in January of Nostradamus, breaking down 2021, we talked about how Italy and France probably play a big role in 2021. And so France has the largest bank in the world and has for a long time. And then there's the plutonian aspect of money, where like only the people, there's a society for only the people rich enough to have tons of money and who've had it for a long time or have tons of it. At the instigation of the church, Dagobert II was killed by King Pepin, thereby effectively ending the power of the Merovingian dynasty, which, however, lingered on in name until 755 AD. After his death, Dagobert II was promptly written out of all historical accounts. Oh. And that's usually how they keep secret information secret. They get rid of all the other truthful information. Until 1646, genealogies of the kings of France simply passed from Dagobert I straight to Dagobert III, without mentioning the intervening monarch. And so, if you look back to the Plutonian cycle 240 years ago, it was like the end of the Ottoman Empire, and that's when like one of the main kings of France died. And then France did have a big hand in the entire banking system, and has for a long time, and stayed low profile. That like whatever dude had been like Money King over the last 20 years, seems like there would be a transition from one head money dude to the next. Sonner went to Paris and began an affair with Emma Calvé, the famous opera singer. And yeah, I mean, of all the things you do as man on earth, beautiful women who can sing, I imagine, has been captivating for thousands of years. Yeah, the legend of the beauty of women from Paris and France has been legendary forever. In 1896, without any increase in his stipend, he began to spend large sums of money. It's in 1896. Oh, another thing that we learned, was that like up into the 80s, it was totally okay for the richest families to flaunt their money and show the public, or even the mid 40s, who was the richest people on the planet. Like if you look at the richest people from like the 40s, they kind of dropped off the map. And so it went from like showing the entire world over the last 2,000 years who was the richest king and richest kingdom to keeping the richest of the rich hidden in their own little secret world with great architecture, I imagine, and all the finest amenities that the currency of the day could provide. That's the very Plutonian aspect. Like, I don't know, man, the next 3 years are definitely going to be uncharted waters. And there's going to be battles of volatility as 215 nations with their fiat currencies deal with the digital cashless society age. And as money and power slosh around with that damn virus in there. Another thing is one of the reasons like I believe the virus is real, however the fuck it got here, is because the Bible and books like these that I read growing up were like, hey dude, plagues are coming. He began to spend just out of nowhere. The dude was like the richest man on the planet. In 1896, without any increase in his stipend, he began to spend large sums of money, opening bank accounts, and making mysterious journeys. By the end of his life in 1917, he had spent the equivalent of several $1,000,000 pounds. So he was the first millionaire. And somehow, overnight, by finding some weird scroll with weird text on it, he became some like master of paper money from 1896. The Federal Reserve, when was that, 1915? By the end of his life, yeah, he'd spent millions of dollars. The only explanation seems to be that his extravagances were paid out of the recovered treasure trove. Maybe this came from the Cathars or the Knights Templar. But more probably, it once belonged to the last Merovingian king. Saranere paid for a new road to be built to the village, an improved water supply, an orangery, a villa, a tower, and a zoological garden. He also decorated the church in a bizarre fashion. This redecoration included a strange statue of the demon Asmodeus, custodian of secrets and alleged guardian of hidden treasure in the church porch. And from that sounds, definitely has Asmodeus has Plutonian vibes. Pluto, the god of money. And that at times Merovingians can pull money almost out of thin air or electricity. Because if Nikola Tesla showed us that you can get an unlimited amount of energy out of the Earth's core, and then you figured out how to turn that energy into crypto coins, that means you could create an unlimited number of cryptos. And so I guess the last 20 years we're dealing with the digital and crypto kings with their double wands. In his newfound wealth, under pressure, Sarene refused to explain the origins of his newfound wealth to the Church Superior and Carcassonne. Over the next decade, Sarene received many distinguished visitors. Even the French Secretary of State and the Archduke Johann of Wenzburg came to visit him. The Archduke, in fact, paid him a considerable amount of money for some ancient jewel, it is thought, although this has never been ascertained. On his deathbed, however, Sarene confessed everything to the priest and consequently was refused absolution. So I guess Catholic, the priest was like, no, you're not getting to heaven, but only God can judge, and who knows, man. Maybe the demon Asmodeus had more than a passing involvement in that refusal. Yeah, if he was, who knows how God dealt with him when he got there. When France changed its currency, Sarene's legate, Marie d'Arenade, was seen burning sheaves of old bank notes. And so, this sounds like the birth of fiat currency. When they talk about with alchemists trying to turn lead into gold, what really happened at the dawn of the New Age, quote unquote, New World Order that started in 1888, allowed civilization to grow, they figured out how to turn gold and silver into paper. And that, so for the last 130 years, we've been in the paper money age. That's like the mark of the beast, technically, is the currency, the money. And that the fiat kings ruled for 130 years, and now we're like in the age of the digital kings. And we have seen, while the plague came out among the people of Earth, and even just as Americans, how neither Congress or the Senate, the president, has really been able to come together to give the people the help they need, because you got so many bills to pay. And that, yes, throughout the last year, crime has increased, homelessness has gone up, that the average Joe is not getting a very fair shake. Yeah, when France changed its currency, his wife, or his woman, Marie d'Arenade, was seen burning sheaves of old banknotes. And Nostradamus talked about how, like, the banknotes thrown in the lake of fire burn and the currencies collapse. And so the transition of the fiat currency to whatever the world is going to use is a very crazy, tenuous process that as Planetary Defense Commander, I've done what I can to help protect the people and get us to a better world, but we will see what happens. This convinced many local people that the quiet village priest had recovered the treasure of the last Merovingian king, with the assistance of that very demon who is reputed to have helped King Solomon build his temples. It's sometimes been said that the reawakening of such demons will herald the arrival of the Millennium and the unfolding of the last chapter in our history. What will that last chapter be? 1 year? Will it be 1,000 years? Oh, Bianca, what time is it? My beer store closes it. I'll buy some beer for tomorrow night. I would have bought beer tonight, but there were no donations today. So, thank you. And it proves the theory of I had dinner November 11th with QAnon. What kind of beer? I don't know, probably High Life. Because like I said, I still got to pay rent and electricity and other bills. They're like, after I had dinner with QAnon, donations above $2.99 stopped showing up on my badass camera iPhone. And so I bought a piece of shit little phone, this one. And even though I've done like 5 or 6 or 7 on here since I've been watching that theory, no larger donations have shown up on this one. But if I switch to this phone, they do show up. So I'll probably be using this phone. And thank y'all. But I'm definitely still operating off the premise, and I will get beer for tomorrow night. We'll be doing this. Got a couple chapters in here. I really want to go get my car. I want to go for a fucking drive. Thank you very much, Pamela. I'll watch the Inhumans. Okay. Oh, Inhumans, yeah, definitely. Angelina Jolie. Oh, another thing. Speaking of beautiful women, so like in the early 90s, every man and most women was in love with Angelina Jolie. Like everybody just agreed, like, oh my God, that woman is like super goddess beautiful. And that the power of a woman is like, it's always been one of the most powerful things. And then I'm not surprised that one of the richest men on the planet at the time ended up with a beautiful, famous opera singer. You guys are great. So this part is the sidebar of the 1996 book. Oh, I gotta write. Crap. Okay, I can look it back up. I gotta write everybody's name down so I can thank you in my thank you list. I will go back and look at it if I can read the chat. But shit. Oh, so unprepared. And even my mom was like, man, you might have fucked up. I mean, she didn't say fuck, but by your whole 5-year spell where you were chasing after those beautiful, smart women who could sing, that's where you fucked up. And I was like, it seemed like they'd be powerful allies if you were trying to bring about peace and improve the world and raise our vibration. But for the record, hurricanes came under control after Selena put on that amazing singing show thingy that I saw in person with everybody that was there. And that was one of the coolest energy days of my entire life that I've seen people participate in. I forgot. Crap. Thank y'all. Oh, okay. In one of the movies I was writing, the two guys, Ace River and Nick, are kind of based on like the sons of Neo. You know, Neo from the Matrix. Where Neo's got to deal with the architect guys, and you got to deal with the Merovingian guys, and at the end of it all, he chooses love. And they're like love and family and good times. Although Gets his eyes melted out. They're making a new one though. Hopefully it has a happier ending. Yeah, so I really want to drive a car. And so I'm going to be doing versions of this, for better for worse, through the third. Oh, wrong pair of glasses. And tomorrow night I'll be doing it with beer. What kind of beer? I don't know. Top generals. Thank you to all the kick-ass generals and commanders and cool people out there. What'd I do with my glasses? The Merovingians. The Merovingian dynasty was credited with a sacred, miraculous, and some say divine bloodline. Its members bore a large number of Judaic names as Solomon, Levite, for some chroniclers, Goth, and Jew were interchangeable. The local Jewish population in French marches were known as the Gothics or Gothia. And the large base of Goth is romance and chivalry. So just like any kingly dynasty, you have your good kings and your bad kings. One member of the Merovingian dynasty was referred to by both King Pepin and the Caliph of Baghdad. The seed of the royal house of David, confirming the possibility of Jewish roots going back to biblical times. Dagobert himself married to the daughter of an ostensibly Visigoth prince with Semitic name of Bera. And Wolfram von Ebach's poem, Paris Fall, Guem de Gelon, Count of the Toulouse, Ozernay, and Razes, another Merovingian, was associated closely with the Holy Grail. This is the time of the portion where I take, where like the Holy Grail kind of represented the 1500s, where everybody was like chasing some magical cup of life that would make you immortal. Guilhem was fluent in Hebrew and Arabic, and the device on his shield was the Lion of Judah. Later, writers had hinted that the Merovingian dynasty did not merely have Judaic roots, but they form part of an attuned bloodline stretching back to Jesus himself. And look, man, I have been obsessed with the Jesus bloodline forever, and Jesus was a Jew. And I definitely think, whether it be energetically, spiritually, physically, that those bloodlines exist. But like it's like being born into a responsibility. Like you were given all these talents and responsibilities. What are you going to do with them? I believe a good king always takes care of his people. Indeed, Dagobert II, like many Merovingian kings, was almost certainly a subscriber to that believer in the bloodline thingy, which maintained that Jesus was another prophet, a messenger of God. The Quran maintains that Jesus did not die on the cross. They did not kill him. They thought they did. But like either way, there's like an agreement that like Jesus Christ, the Spirit, still lives on. And the fact that I'm a Christian talking to him here today, 1950 years later, to me is absolute proof that I need. Yeah. somehow they could write down words on a piece of paper and numbers and create money. So it is crazy how the Aleister Crowley thing pointed towards cryptocurrencies. And then the Merovingian demon thing points towards just the fiat currency reign that existed from 1917 to still now, 2020. Okay, I guess for this chapter, I'll do one more. Leo Taxil, the Great Hoaxer. I drink some water, though. Hoax, that's a popular word. I looked it up. The term hoax comes from hocus pocus. Shortened. This is the month I start drinking water, I start exercising, and I start not looking great, hopefully. Oh, great. Leo Taxil, the Great Hoaxer. In the 1890s, Paris, Gabrielle Jogand Pages, who also went under the pseudonym Leo Taxil, joined forces with a band of fellow freethinkers to indulge in a giant leg pull against the Roman Catholic Church. Jogand Pages looked to the black arts to offend against the strong Catholic tradition of their country. This consummate confidence trickster was born in Provence in the mid-19th century and educated in a Jesuit college. It was during the time here that he encountered Freemasonry, a forbidden subject in a Catholic boys' school. And, I'd like to take a second here to point out that throughout the last 100 years, throughout the last 2,000 years, that there's just a giant freaking collection of groups. I mean, and so to have all of the groups blaming everything on everybody else all the time, it's fucking crazy, dude. Jogand Pages became a Freemason, but then performed an apparent ideological turn by writing a denunciation of Freemasonry. In truth, Taxi's writings were little more than skilled hoaxes. He went on to gild the lily by inventing an ex-Satanist called Diana Vaughan, allegedly a descendant of English alchemist Thomas Vaughan, who he dangled before a fascinated Catholic hierarchy as a potential convert. Yeah, dude, it's amazing how gossip has been a very powerful tool. Gossip and creating stories. And so you have like agents, double agents, triple agents. Diana said Taxil, this is some heavy shit, man. Was a member of an organization called Palladium, a worldwide satanic cult reputedly run by Masons, acting under a man called Albert Pike. From Charleston in the USA. To give Diana some credibility and a dash of devilish color, Taxil even provided a pedigree for her and her fellow Satanists. So in the 1890s, they are pumping out disinformation. Part of this pedigree, and one of Taxil's greatest hoaxes, was the prediction of the birth and ancestry of the Antichrist, as mentioned in the Apocalypse of St. John. One of the Palladium's priestesses, Sophia Walder, was presented as a literal child of Satan fathered by Lucifer. According to the prediction, Sophia would go to Jerusalem where in the summer of 1896 she would have intercourse with the demon Bitru, Bitru, and give birth to a daughter. 33 years later, this daughter would have a daughter by the demon Decarabia, who after a further 33 years in 1962 would then give birth to the Antichrist. So, saying that they created a giant story and giant backstory and I think sold it to everybody. Again, in the early 1890s, that the Antichrist would be born in 1962. That would make him like 60 years old. Is that like 38 plus 59? The prophecy goes on to say that the Antichrist will make his mission public at the age of 33 in 1995. These are some big predictions made from 1890s, bro. And he will then bring about the Pope's conversion from Catholicism. This will be followed by a year of war, which will result in the destruction of the Catholic Church and the conversion of many souls to the Antichrist. Wow, that's some heavy shit. And it falls back into our great changeover of 1997-ish. But the whole affair has been characterized as a hoax. There were a number of real elements. For example, Albert Pike was a very senior American Freemason who wrote a classic book, the subject, The Morals of Dogma and Freemasonry, which in it he described that they were going to divide and conquer everybody and everything, and they were going to divide people on their sexuality, their gender, their race, their religion. That they were going from like 1880 until they were going to divide everybody every which way but loose. Although there's no evidence that Taxil was connected to Pike, the prediction also influenced the contemporary American psychic Jean Dixon, who had a vision of the birth of the Antichrist somewhere in the Middle East on the 6th of February in the same year as Taxil had stated. In her vision, the parents of the child were the ancient Egyptian queen Nefertiti and the pharaoh Akhenaten. The symbolic reasons the Antichrist should be born in either Galilee or Jerusalem to balance the birth of Christ. Nicholas Campion, who decided to draw a nativity of the Antichrist, discovered that the day before there had been a solar eclipse. Campion chose this time to draw the horoscope of the Antichrist at 10 minutes in O time, Greenwich Mean Time, After this time, in addition to the eclipse, all 7 traditional planets, Mercury, Venus, Sun, Moon, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn, were in the sign of Aquarius, the rare astrological conjunction. The vision of a child being born as the Antichrist was taken up in 1976 by David Seltzer in his novel The Omen. Damien, obviously the Antichrist, grows up in the family of an American career diplomat. Several very popular films have been based on this premise. Aleister Crowley, the 20th century's most notorious magician, includes a child character whose specific magical abilities in his novel Moonchild. Although the novel does not mention the Antichrist, Crowley had obviously toyed with the idea of deliberately breeding a future Antichrist to complement his own assumed title of the Great Beast 666. And so, to me, that's, Jesus said you can only judge a tree by its fruit. And so, the spirits that people get into, if people are selling hate, anger, confusion, lies, hoaxes, anything that can, like, if people are selling other people things that will divide the people, then even if they're doing it in God's name or Jesus' name, that, like, by saying that this is the mark of the beast or that's the mark, like, it just seems like definitely the last 40 years of the economy, a lot has been made on people selling doom and gloom, and that everything's hopeless and the world is going to end sometime soon. All right, the Antichrist. Nostradamus said there were 3 of them. He said the first one was Napoleon. He said the second one was Hitler. And then he too was like, yeah, and then there's going to be one after that. About my breaking down. The Antichrist, when he arrives, will claim to be God and will work miracles, such as raising the dead, walking on water, healing the sick, and possibly even flying. I don't know what this means. The Jewish tradition has the incarnation of an evil power as a bald person with one eye bigger than the other, and it was deaf in the right ear. That seems pretty specific. One historical person identified as the adversary was the Syrian king Antiochus IV Epiphanes, who ruled from 175 to 164 BC, who captured Jerusalem in 171 BC and used the temple for sacrifice to pagan gods. Yeah, so they sacrificed Jesus, and I would like the ages of sacrifice of human beings to end. It's a huge theme. Whether they be sacrificing people for money or power, that just seems like some heavy, dark, caveman shit. He later ordered the persecution of the Jews, recorded in the second book of Maccabees. Yeah, we gotta stop persecuting each other. The most famous biblical reference to the Antichrist is in the Apocalypse of St. John, chapter 13, although John does not use the actual term Antichrist, referring instead to a beast. And to me, the beast represents like the stock markets. But that's been my guess since about the mid-90s. Other identifications of the Antichrist have been the term, and like pretty much everybody's been accused of being an Antichrist for a long time, especially in the modern age. The Antichrist is not to be confused with Satan. He is Satan's human representative on earth. Although the old Latin term for Satan meant adversary or enemy. All right, one more. I'm take a break. No way we're ending on that negative shit. The dawning of the age of Aquarius. Of all the dates and predictions examined in this book, the following timetable of dates is the most significant for the dawning of the age of Aquarius. And one thing that is interesting, Age of Aquarius is known as the water bringer, but it's an air sign. And so I would like to bounce off my own knowledge for a second. And to me, screenwriter, planetary defense commander wise, the fact that like Saturn and Jupiter both passed Pluto together, so we went through the very Plutonian 2017 till now age, and Saturn and Jupiter seem very happy to be moving away from Pluto, but they are both then headed towards Neptune. And so the future of where we're going, I think a lot of it is going to be heavily influenced by both of their treks towards the conjunction with Neptune, and a lot of the direction we take as humankind is like, how well are we going to treat the water? Like, are we going to give clean water to the people, the plants, the animals? Are we going to clean up? Are we going to fix shit? Who knows? The following are the main contenders. Oh yeah, I've read this part. The date of the dawning of the age of Aquarius. These dates do not necessarily correspond with the arrival of the Millennium, the second coming of Christ, or the Battle of Armageddon. They are altogether gentler dates with destiny, and ushering in of a period of earthly peace and not of judgment. And that's why I'm telling y'all that, like, who I am and who I went to be and that it definitely felt like from when I was born in the start of 1971 through the year 2000, everybody agreed that like peace was possible, and it was the next step we were going to take. And that whatever doomy, gloomy prophecies people give or sell, they're like one chapter in the direction we are headed. That in some point in time, humanity will get to a good place here on Earth as a civilization. That will not be an age of war. I could be wrong though. (1904), the beginning of the Age of Horus, as received by Aleister Crowley in 1904 in Cairo. Remember, on our dollar bill, nobody like all the shit people talk about the mark of the beast. I always say, like, if you were looking for a one new world order, it's the money that it's been here for fucking 100 years, man. Like, why are we putting like Egyptian pyramid on our freaking dollar? The petrodollar, which is the first time the entire globe has had a single currency that runs like that connects everything. AWAS, AIWAS, so-called age crowned and conquering child, is often identified with the age of Aquarius. And spelled the New Age era and the end of the Christian period and its slave mentality. So that is the other thing of like when America owned slaves, they told, and both agreed in Jesus and Christianity, they told the slaves, oh, don't worry, you get your rewards in heaven. And that we've still been in a weird age since Jesus of sacrifice, debt, and slavery. We're all enslaved with debt. In 1905, entry to the Aquarian Age was identified by Gerald Massey as 2,160 years after 255 BC. In fact, arithmetically, it should have been calculated as 1906. The rationale for choosing 255 BC is a bit doubtful, it being the date of the writing of the Septuagint, the Old Testament translated into Greek. What? 1911. Alina Petrovna Blavatsky's Theosophical Society chose this date on the basis of the words of the Lord Maitra as dictated to Krishnamurti, then Society's world teacher. And the World War I began in 1914, 3 years later. And around 1888 is when the Merovingian dude kept running around with paper money. Messages received by Alice Bailey from Diwal Kul, the discarnate Tibetan, indicated that the age of Aquarius had already begun. (1936), the beginning of the Earth's axial shift as predicted by American psychic Edgar Cayce. We have definitely seen magnetic movement within the magnetic field over the last 50 years. And if you could figure out the magnetic field and it wasn't going to end in some total disastrous fashion, you could figure out where the earthquakes and the earth changes could be. 1943 is when Edgar Cayce said the new spiritual age would begin on this date. 2 years later, World War II and Hitler was done for. And apparently the 50s were great. Everybody was celebrating. Everybody was glad that Hitler had not taken over the world. Everybody outside of Germany was glad they weren't forced to speak German. 1962, that was the date that they predicted the Antichrist, according to Leo Taxil, who was a hoaxist, and American clairvoyant Gene Dixon. Nicholas Campion chose February 5th, when all 7 planets would be aligned. The Peruvian spiritual messenger Haru Hayuata of the Quech Nation also chose February 1962 as the commencement of the Age of Aquarius. 1963, possible arrival of the Age of Aquarius, according to the author of the Liber Vaticanizzationum, the beginning of the hippie era, preaching the new age of love. Yeah, then they killed Jimi Hendrix, Janis Joplin, and Jim Morrison, and shit went haywire. 1975, arrival date for the avatar of the new age, according to the astrologer Dane Rudhyar. I don't know, so look back. Was there any super big people in 1975? The breakup of communism, 1989. They said that was a weird deal. I mean, the Ottoman Empire falling and Rome falling and even communism falling, like, all of this shit is taking place in a post-1940 atomic age. 1995, Max Toth declares the arrival of the King of Spirit. The year in which, 1995, when the Antichrist was supposed to convert the Pope. 1997, psychologist Carl Jung's date for the arrival of the New Age. See, up until the internet, everybody was obsessed with Armageddon, the Age of Aquarius, and people have been talking about it intensely for 130 years. 1999, Nostradamus predicts the arrival of the King of Terror in September, possibly followed by Armageddon. Not really a candidate for beginning of the New Age, but useful as a marker. This was written in 1996. And so he made that prediction in like 1540. For him to pick 1999, have a King of Terror in September, and be like 2 years off of the whole terrorism kick, that's just crazy, man. But I believe that prophecy is for damage mitigation. And that you can make the best of whatever situations we will be going through. On 11th of August 1999, there was to occur the last eclipse of the 20th century in a Grand Cross astrological formation. And I definitely know from the day I was born, everybody talked about the year 2000 forever. Chosen by many Christian and non-Christian prophets as the key date, including Nostradamus, the Second Coming, St. Malachi, by inference, Edgar Casey, the Virgin Mary at Fatima, by inference, and many Christians, particularly fundamentalist writers and preachers, that the 4th or 5th of May 2000 brings a significant astronomical formation, which, according to Richard Keininger and the Steele Group, Keininger, Keininger, and the Steele Group, will bring cataclysmic destruction. So those guys said cataclysmic destruction was coming at the year 2000. 2001, arithmetically a more sound choice than the previous year, with support from the Seventh-day Adventists, Hebrew chronology, and Nostradamus. But both dates are more closely associated with the apocalypse and the second coming of Christ than the dawning of the age of Aquarius. A date, 2010. So it jumps from 2001 to 2010, just like Kubrick did. A date favored by a number of writers on esoteric subjects, including Nicholas Tereshchenko and Peter Lemmercier, and the latter given French Institute Geographic National as his authority. And then it picks 2012. Jose Arugulus suggests that this year ends or marks the end of the 396-year age according to the ancient Mayan calendar. And so that like a 396-year age was going to start. Again, the world wasn't going to end. It was just like we were entering into a new age. Just like you can all agree, the industrial age was the thing. The post-electricity age was the thing. Like the post-internet age is the thing. The like digital money transition is a big deal. (2012). Okay, now 2013, the end of the Incan calendar. According to William Hayuata, the new age will be ushered in by the close passage to Earth by a huge asteroid. Whoa. So he predicted that was when Asteroid Fight Club started. Strange. Very strange. 2020, on December 21st, December this year, Jupiter and Saturn will be in conjunction in Aquarius for the first time since AD 1404, according to Adrian Duncan. The ancient Jews certainly prized this particular conjunction as a portent of major changes. 2023, World Ben. WOLD Ben. Waldben pinpoints this date as the beginning of the age of Aquarius. And so, like I've said, Saturn and Jupiter going into Aquarius is a big deal. But that I don't think we're really going to enter, like we won't fully be in the age of Aquarius until the end of 2023, 2024. And what our monetary system, what our global system, what everything will look like, I don't know. And that the only point in semi-modern history where the power people really just chose to torture people all the time was the Spanish Inquisition. And so some people would have you to believe that for 6 years we're just going to get fucking tortured in the tribulation. And I'm saying there have been like 3 multiple periods, 6-year periods since 9/11, where, fuck, it seems like they've just been torturing us mentally, physically, spiritually. And so it feels like we've been through the age of tribulation 3 different times. And that things can get better. 2060. So it has all the prediction dates pretty much fall off the map after 2023. All the people who took shots at predicting it from 1880 up until 1996, it goes from 2001, 2010, 2012, 2013, 2020, 2023, bang, 2060. Dan Rudyard suggests the age of Pisces began in 100 BC, hence the standard precessional period of 2160 is the age of Aquarius. What? 2143. Christ's birth plus the precessional period of 2,134 years, plus or minus a few years for inaccuracy about that particular date. 2160. Christ's birth plus the standard precessional period of 2,160 years, also plus or minus a few years, the same inaccuracy. The date suggested by World Bane and Gordon Strachan. 2233, the earliest date for the Day of Judgment, according to 15th century monk Johannes Trifonius. And he's like, then maybe we'll have a new age. That's like 210 years from now. So it asks here, which date is right? Everyone who has given an opinion on the likely date for the dawning of Aquarius seems to agree that it will be around for the year 2000. And that in some form or fashion or capacity, we are going to be in the age of Aquarius now. This probably seems a little vague, so let's see if we can narrow it down a bit. The reasonable to assume that the age of Pisces started before Christ's birth, at the earliest around 200 BC. If we adopt the standard precessional period of 2,160 years, the age of Aquarius is likely to begin no earlier than 200 BC plus 2,160 years, or AD 1961. If we chose Christ's birth as the latest possible start of the age of Pisces, then we get to AD 2161 as the latest possible date for the dawning of the age of Aquarius. I think we'll really be in the whole flow of 100 years of the age of Aquarius, 140 by 2023, 2024. And I hope it is a good and fun time. It is possible the age of Aquarius has already begun in 1962, 1963, and that the shackles of the old age will now be completely thrown off until 2001 or 2010. Well, the shackles did not get thrown off. Next chapter will be hippies in the age of the Aquarius. Most people did not realize there was such a thing as the age of Aquarius until they hit musical Hair. But astrologers had known about it long before. Yeah, but definitely, from everything we've read, the jump from 1888 to 1996, and then 1996 until now has been, whoa, buddy, things are crazy. And if I can make it a couple more weeks, I will have been your planetary defense commander for 7 years. And I'm ready to go for a Sunday drive. No matter what, we got here together. Civilization is still standing. Love you guys. Y'all rule. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Stay cool.